high, moderate low, very low, and critically low. And then the composite performance index is a 100-point index, assigning a 100, 75, 50, 25, or 0 points to each student participating in MCAS and MCAS all tests based. Our goal there is to get all students to 100. So as an overview of the schools, at the Batchelder we have no status for ELA, very high performance rating, and they're on target. For mathematics, no status, very high performance rating, and no change. The Hood, no status, very high and on target. Mathematics, no status, high, and no change. For the little school, the ELA is no status, very high, with no change. For mathematics, no status, very high and on target. At the middle school, we have English Language Arts. This year, they're in year 1 of improvement, so that they didn't make AYP for the last 2 years. But something that's very important there to see is the performance rating is still very high, meaning that overall the students are doing very well. We have a small group of students that we've targeted that we need to keep working with to get them over that bar, and that's really our goal for this year. They're on target for improvement. In mathematics, they're on year 2, a high performance rating, and no change in the improvement rating. So we'll be working a lot with the middle school this year, and we've already started a lot of that, and we'll talk about that in a few moments. At the North Reading High School, as you can see, no status, very high and on target for both English Language Arts and mathematics. Some of the observations which I've mentioned throughout here, the scores are very good overall. I was very impressed as we look through these and see our scores overall for the district. The advanced and the proficient scores at all levels exceed the state averages, which is really commendable. And high school mathematics, as I said, is really outstanding performance. Targeted areas of improvement. We do need to do an in-depth multi-year analysis of the middle school English Language Arts and Math. Our goals overall, moving all students to proficient and advanced, and like I said, going from good to great, getting more and more students from proficient to advanced. That's our real goal, because one of the tricks is trying to show that growth when a student is already proficient or already advanced, trying to get them even better. And that's a real challenge in a school system such as North Reading, and it's a good challenge that I think teachers and leaders are very excited about. English Language Arts level across the district. We see a lot of proficiency, and a lot of it's sort of a plateau when we look at this over 3 or 4 years, and we really want to start seeing some improvement in that area. And a major area we're going to address with that is the writing, and we've brought in some writing programs the last few years. That's something we're going to speak to. We're going to really look at how the test is being scored. It's changed in the past few years. There's a much stronger emphasis now on voice, and it's move beyond some of the 5-paragraph essay structure and really getting into student voice. So that's something we're going to work with at all levels on MCAS topic development and voice. Specific plans for progress. With our Title I funds, we were going to have math tutors at the little school and the Hood, as well as the middle school. We also will have English Language Arts tutors at the middle school based upon their improvement status. At the middle school, increased teacher professional development in content areas. That's for all schools, but especially at the middle school. Starting Wednesday, there's already some math teachers that will be going to a presentation on teaching math the way learners actually learn, and really trying to think about new ways to reach these hard-to-reach students who are right now in need of reaching proficiency. We will purchase the Implementing Study Island online tutorials in math and English Language Arts. This is really some one-to-one programming where students can use the computer to work on specific skills that they need. And also Play-Doh at the high school, which is a similar program for the secondary level that will work well for students to really focus on individual needs and almost a one-to-one computer tutorial. Curriculum councils at the grade levels. This is something that we're going to meet with all students. Part of my job is to meet with all teachers at grade levels to review the assessments, benchmarks, and performance for the grade level. So that's my overview program tonight. So,
do you have any comments you want to make before I open it up to questions?
I'd rather open it up.
All right. Questions, comments? Yeah, Jerry?
I was just looking at the math scores, and you've already addressed it, obviously, but what do you attribute to, in grade 8 mathematics, we have 58% either at the advanced or proficient level, and then we come over to grade 10, and it's 92%. That seems like a dramatic, somewhere getting lost in the translation between the 8th and the 10th grade. And I see it again in the 3rd grade when you compare it to the 4th and 5th grade as well.
Sure. There are some differences with the test. There are some differences with the standards. That's something we will be looking at, though, in more depth and detail, trying to figure out what we can be doing differently. But I think there's several different reasons. There's motivational factors for students. There's the construction of the test. So there's many different
So
factors.
you see a
there.
similar range of discrepancy if you looked at the statewide
Absolutely.
scores as well then?
Middle schools across the state are in a similar situation. So this is really what we're seeing here. So
Particularly in mathematics.
especially in mathematics, absolutely.
I just want to make a couple comments. I know that I think one thing that burdens North Reading today is that when MCAS was introduced, we came out of the gates flying. And so we hit a lot of high levels early on in this testing. And I think you do reach a level where in most districts are in this, have this problem now, where it's the hard part in terms of, you know, those kids that are a little more challenged to get them to improve, to get into the proficient and advanced category. I think the second thing is, maybe there's concern out there when parents see, geez, we have a couple grade levels that aren't meeting AYP. Well, I did a little research. I couldn't find, there are no districts around here that don't have AYP issues. In fact, we're always compared to Andover. Andover has AYP problems at every grade level, including high school. We have the middle school. You look at Wilmington, you look at Reading, you look at Linfield, every single one of them has the same issue. So it's more of an issue for these communities of how do we get these kids who are almost there, how do we get them over that hurdle? And one of the things I think I heard you say was more one-to-one, teaching is required, and you can do some of that with technology. I do think we need, at some point, it's going to require staff too. And I guess the other question I have is, since the Batchelder doesn't qualify for Title I funds, how do we address any issues at the Batchelder school?
That is the challenge, and we don't have those additional funds. It's the only elementary school that's not receiving any. They do not qualify. You know, the Title I funds are allocated based on low income status. Right. So that is the challenge, and we haven't come up with any kind of a solution to that challenge at this particular time. But we are starting to take a look at not only our student performance, but taking a look at trend analysis to see how well our curriculum is aligned with the curriculum frameworks put out by the state and soon to be the Common Core. And that's another activity in which we'll engage over the next few months. Because as we take a look at, in some of our grades where I've flagged a particular concern, taking a look at student performance over the last 3 years, I think that there might be some discrepancy. So when we say, what are some of the factors that Jerry raised around why we're seeing a discrepancy? It's not only about individual students, it's also about what we do in our classrooms in terms of instruction, and what are the tools that we have available to us to use in order to instruct our students. So we'll be not only looking at student performance, but curriculum and instruction and assessment. I can tell you that as part of best practices, and John Fauché mentioned this during his school improvement plan presentation, we know that providing opportunities for common assessments and the development of those common assessments by teachers, as well as benchmark assessments to do progress monitoring, gives teachers the immediate real-time feedback that they need in order to provide interventions before students fall too far behind over the course of a school year. And that's something that has already started in this district, but we're going to accelerate that progress.
I think the one other thing I wanted to point out, and this will take about a minute, but if you take our combined proficient and advanced at each grade level in each subject, we're in a pretty good place, and we always want to get better. But third grade English, we're in the top 23. But these are roundabout top 23% of the state. Third grade math, we're in the top 4% in the state. Fourth grade English, top 16, 17%. Fourth grade math, top 12, 13%. Fifth grade English, top 9%. Fifth grade math, top 27. Fifth grade science, little slip, but still we're in the top third. In sixth grade English, top 22%. Sixth grade math, top 20. Seventh grade English, 14 to 15%. Seventh grade math, 22%. Eighth grade English and math, I think, are some issues. We're in the top 45% in English, in the top 40 to 45% in math, top 30 to 35% in science. And I know you're already addressing that. And then you go to the 10th grade, English, top 30%, math, top 11%, and science, top 12%. Given where we sit on how much money we spend, which is in the bottom 15%, these are tremendous results.
Big bang for your buck.
And you always have to strive to do better. And I know that everybody's supposed to be over there in the advanced and proficient groups by 2014, but with a few exceptions, these results are quite good when compared with the rest of the state. And there are in many of the categories, we get compared to these communities a lot, Linfield and Andover. In many of the categories, we perform better than those school districts at certain grades. So, overall, I don't have any complaints with these results.
But we still need to target those problem areas. I mean, 'cause
Yeah,
those
absolutely. No,
percentages are
absolutely.
dramatically different when you
right.
compare them to the state level.
Right.
I do have a slight concern. I think we are dropping a little bit every year, overall and by school. And I did find that Linfield at some points were ranked 20 points higher than us. Even Reading at some points in certain grades ranked 20 points higher than us. Stoneham is a larger school system, and from what I've heard, they're not as proficient as we are here in North Reading, but they were in the top 5 in a lot of their elementary schools, and we were back down in the 120s. So I think there is some concern. And when I first moved here, we were up pretty high, and it seems like we're slowly dropping back a little bit at a time, and I'm not sure what's causing that. Maybe it is lack of funding or what it is, but I think we need to bring that up also. It isn't that rosy of a picture.
I disagree.
Well, I agree to some extent that there are some areas
we're
that we
not,
need to
we're not
target.
our scores have not dropped significantly. It can be 1 or 2 kids that causes that percentage
But our
drop.
positioning is dropping compared to the other towns.
Well, it's
disagree with that
artificial. It
conclusion.
really is artificial. I mean, if you look at this data, what you really should be looking at is cohort effect and looking at kids who are, who took the test at grade 3 and moved up, and look at that. I don't think you're going to find that our kids are doing progressively worse. I mean, the one diagram I really
I'm not saying they're
like-
doing progressively worse or a lot worse. I'm just saying when you go out to Boston.com and I'm looking at a community that I want to move into, North Reading seems to be dropping slightly every year. I'm not
Well-
saying we're doing poorly. I'm just saying maybe the other schools are maybe doing better at preparing the kids for MCAS. I'm not sure what it
I'll come
is.
back to what Mel had said initially, though, that we came out of the gates 7 or 8 or however many years ago we started MCAS testing, extremely high.
Right.
So the need for improvement in other communities was far more significant than ours, and I think those communities have addressed that, obviously progressively over those years, and elevated their scores. Now, whether or not that means they've passed us in some areas or whether we've stayed the same, that's a question that I have, but I know that we started out very, very quickly,
Right,
and some of these other cities and towns have caught up, I think that's happened.
Cliff, did you want to? Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, we play with a team that we're dealt as well. You remember that we go to war with the Army that we've got. Well, we go to school every day with the kids that come to school, and so we're stuck with that a little bit. I think what I see is that this inconsistency between grades where we seem to drop off and then come back up. Obviously, there's an alignment issue
Right.
with regard to the testing. But when we hit grade 10, we look pretty good. So whatever we're doing along the way aggregates to grade 10, which is really the proof of the pudding, isn't it?
Grade 10 is outstanding.
And then look at our SAT scores over the past several years,
And our AP
and you'll
scores.
find they're consistently up and to the right. They're consistently rising every year. That tells me that beyond MCAS, which is what, of course, we have to pay attention to because we got this AYP thing to deal with and an unachievable goal of everybody at 100%, which is never going to happen.
Agreed.
It's not in real life anyway, unless you rig the test or teach to the test. But what we're doing is right in aggregate. Somewhere in there, we're not perfectly aligned with where the tests come out. So adjusting for curriculum, for being consistent with where the state thinks we ought to be, which I hope is right, because we're doing better than most of the state. I hope that we're not messing up grade 10 results in the long run, because those are consistently good. Never good enough. We always want to improve. I've said more than a few times that bigger than Andover is where I want to be. but Andover's numbers